Okay, we're live on StreamYard, but I don't see it on YouTube yet. Hey, we're live. GM everybody. Welcome to another fundraising workshop. Got a great lesson today in budgeting. One of my favorite topics, personally. I love working in spreadsheets. We've got sort of an overview of the functions of budgeting, the features of a good budget, and then we'll go into an actual spreadsheet, and I'll show you like a Web3 project budget template that you can use for your grant proposals, and you can actually fork a copy of it and actually use it. So we'll walk through how to use it today, and then we'll give you a link, and you can use it for your projects in the future. Let's dive in. So no need to take notes. We're recording this presentation, and we'll share the slide deck. We'll share a link to the Google Sheet budget template as well. We've got one more workshop coming up next week, practice your elevator pitch. Hopefully this one will be like really interactive. We'll get a lot of people who are here live in attendance to participate in that one. So it should be a lot of fun. We'll wrap up our fundraising workshop series next week with a fun one, practice your elevator pitch. Same time, same place. Hope to see you there. There's a few announcements that we wanted to make. Got some really exciting developer DAO fundraising opportunities right now. Like, if you're watching this recording later, it might be too late. But if you're watching this live, we're talking about opportunities that are active like this week. So if it's something that you see that you're excited about, contact Wikis and he'll hook you up. The first is that AlgoVera is offering a $1,000 grant for a developer DAO member who's building at the intersection of AI and Web3. The deadline for that grant application is December 10th. So that is Saturday, this coming Saturday. So it's a really easy grant proposal process. If you're building something at the intersection of AI and Web3, contact Wikis for information about how to apply for that grant. Also, Wally is offering free co-working space and a bunch of other resources to developer DAO members who are in New York City. Like right now, I think it's 3 months of free co-working space, and they have a ton, like seriously, a lot of other resources for Web3 builders. They're trying to cultivate a community of developer DAO entrepreneurs in New York City, and they want to give you a place to work and give you other things to help you build your project. So contact Wikis if you're in New York and you want to take Wally up on that really nice offer. Got a lot more to come. We're just getting started, really, as fundraising operators. We haven't been at this for very long. We've been meeting a lot of funders, a lot of partners, and a lot of founders and entrepreneurs in developer DAO. And we're really just starting to connect the dots on how we can bring the most value to this community, and how we can match founders with funders and match partners with the great communities that are in developer DAO. So be on the lookout for a lot more really cool stuff coming out of the developer DAO fundraising office. We have office hours every Monday and Friday at 2 p.m. UTC in Voice Chat 1. You can come talk about strategy. What's your fundraising strategy? You can talk about an actual proposal that you're working on, get feedback on it. You can bring your budget and get feedback on that. It's really whatever you need. Come join us in office hours, and we'll help you out. Monday and Friday, 2 p.m. UTC and Voice Chat 1. We also have a list of our funder friends, Web3 grant programs that we've gotten to know pretty well. We have a point of contact there. We've had a conversation with them. We know what they're looking for. Check out the list. This is an active link. We update it whenever we meet someone new. So we've met a few new funders this week. We add them to the list. We've got another meeting right after this workshop. So bookmark that page and keep checking back as we continue to add funders to the list. We also have an async channel in the Developer DAO Discord, Fundraising General, where you can post questions, you can share links, give us updates, celebrate wins. I would love to see you there in our async spot. And we also have a wiki, all of the questions we've ever gotten about fundraising, all of the resources that we've ever found or created for founders who are fundraising in Developer DAO. We put them in this Notion wiki. So again, this is an active link. We're updating it all the time. Please, check it out, make use of it, bookmark it, and let us know if there's something that you need that's not there, because we'd love to add more resources to it. Let me check the chat. This is we have this is a live workshop, and we have community members here. So if you're watching this on YouTube, if you have a question, please drop it in the chat, and we'll address it as we go. So far, it's a lot of good vibes. GM, everybody, great to be here. Having fun with you all. So I really do love this stuff, and I'm glad that you're here with us today. So our objective for today, we're going to understand how to craft a budget that inspires confidence in funders. Actually, there's two objectives today. Also, you're going to practically gain an understanding of how to use this Web3 grant budget template. Here's the link. Again, if I guess you need to get the link to the presentation to be able to get the link to the template, but Wickest, Victor, is behind the scenes running all the technology. He'll make sure that all of this stuff is published and easily accessible for you all. We're building public goods for Developer DAO. These are all open source resources that we hope that you use. You can share, you can fork. Really grateful to have the opportunity to work with all the founders and work with the community in Developer DAO. And thankful to Developer DAO for giving us this opportunity, enabling us to build these public goods for Developer DAO. So I digress. Today, just to recap, you're gonna gain a better understanding of how to craft a budget and then actually use a grant budget template. Got a little bit of a presentation, and then I'll kind of walk through the budget template, and then have plenty of time at the end for questions. We got a lot of questions over the past week since we announced this workshop. And so also, want to give folks who are here live a chance to ask questions after you've seen the template and kind of maybe thought a bit more critically about budgeting. Want to answer everybody's questions. So it should be at least 20 minutes for Q&A at the end today. So let's start by talking about what are the functions of a budget? Like, what is a budget supposed to do? What's the point? First, really the most important thing that a budget does for you is it helps you map out all of the resources that you need to be able to complete your project. So, this is a great planning tool. It's really a great assistant for you, when you're project planning, when you're putting your roadmap together. But the budget is like, you got to get down to brass tacks and be critical, think critically, and be discerning about like, what is this actually going to cost to pull off? Because, nothing in this world is free. Your time isn't free. Your collaborators' time isn't free. The software that you need to use, you have to pay for. So it's a great planning tool for you to get serious about what you're building and to have a clear eyes about the resources that you need to complete your project. The other function of a budget is to inspire confidence in funders. If you're able to present a coherent budget, they've opened up your grant proposal, they've read the narrative, they're hooked. You see the problem, you get it, you have a good solution, you have the right team. And then, they read about your ideas, your plan, everything's going great. And then they look at your budget and, it's kind of make or break when they get to the budget part of your proposal, because if you haven't thought of everything, it's going to show in your budget. If you're disorganized, it's going to show in your budget. If you're not good at managing money, or you don't have a lot of experience managing money, it's going to show in your budget. And these are all things that can cause you to, lose the confidence of potential funders. So putting together a sharp budget is really important. It can elevate your proposal, and it can also cause a potential funder to lose confidence in your project. So we're going to help you with that today. Just to go a little bit deeper on the confidence thing, a good budget shows that you've thought of everything you need. They're not going to give you money and then you build half of it and then you're like, oh crap, I forgot that we also need these other things. Funders are probably going to know all of the things that you need, and they're going to be able to poke holes in your project if you haven't shown a plan for resources that clearly you're going to need. If you haven't put it in the budget, they're going to be like, how are you going to build this thing without that important resource that everyone knows that you're going to need? Also, asking for the right amount. This is kind of in the same vein. I think people often, when they're submitting a grant proposal, they want to make it as low as possible. They think that they're more likely to get funding if they ask for less. And that's not the case. Your funder is your partner. They want you to be successful, okay? So you have to ask for the right amount of money. And it's not, when I say the right amount, it's not guessing how much they want to spend. You should know how much they want to spend. You should already know that, either because like Victor and I have talked to them and we've asked them and we've given you that information, or it's on their website, or you've talked to them. You know how big of a grant they're willing to make. So it's not a guessing game. You should already know how much they're willing to fund before you submit a proposal. And like, your budget shouldn't be cutting corners. If you're asking for less than what you need, funders probably going to see that. Also, like, if you're asking for more than what you need, funder's going to see that too. So a funder probably knows how much you need to pull off the project, and your budget should just be again, like a clear-eyed, realistic picture. This is what it is. It's very objective. It's fact-based. It's based on math, and people know what the answers are. When it's math, it's less subjective, much more objective. You also inspire confidence in funders. When you're organized, it just makes people feel more comfortable dealing with you, working with you. So just having a nice two-dimensional table, very simple, in Excel or Google Sheets, that's all anybody wants. It's easy to read. It's clear, shows that you're organized, you're a good project manager, or someone that you work with is a good project manager. And attention to detail, kind of, reiterating points I've already made. Just things aren't missing, and the details are sharp in a budget. That will inspire confidence in funders. Check if there's any questions. Okay, rule number 1, only boomer colors in Excel sheets. No Zoom or Drive links, please. All right, wants to comment. I guess you got some experience on the other side of this. But I guess the idea here is be conservative with your color scheme and also with all of your links. Imagine it's kind of like, the meme or the maxim, like, explain it to me like I'm 5. Like, you don't get extra points for having fancy, crazy equations and really bright colors and gradient scale and dark mode in a budget. No, people just want a they have an expectation that is just going to be a two-dimensional table, very simple. That's what they want to see. All right, so features of a budget. We've talked about what is a budget supposed to do, and now features of a budget. What does a budget need to include? Simple table, usually done in Excel or Google Sheets. There is a set of assumptions about how much inputs will cost, okay? And whether you state these assumptions explicitly, like you have an assumptions list in your budget, or not, whether maybe it's just built into the math that's helped you arrive at the number that you're asking for, but your assumptions are there. Like, you're making assumptions about how much engineers will cost, about how much software will cost, about how long it will take. There's a lot of assumptions built into a budget. I think it's a good idea to lay these out and just kind of show what your thinking is. It can invite a conversation with a funder. They might say, you think you can get this done in 4 weeks? We've never seen a project like this get done in less than 6 weeks. So, ask for 50% more and we'll give you the money. Laying out your assumptions just helps people kind of get inside your head. And if they like your project, then they might push on a few of the assumptions because they want you to be successful. And, challenging your assumptions is a way to just kind of pressure test how much you've thought about it. So it's good to lay those out. Whether you do or not, there's assumptions in your budget. Same, about the time. So not only the inputs, but also the time that it will take. People tend to underestimate how long things will take to complete. So it could be good to lay that out, lay out how much time you think everything will take. Again, just to be transparent with a funder who you want to become your partner, you want to help you succeed. A budget needs to include all of the roles that you need for the project, and then a brief description of each role's responsibility, like just a few words should be in the budget. Your grant proposal, your grant application should go into more detail about your team, but the budget needs the roles. I mean, we're working in a knowledge economy. Like, your greatest expense is going to be the people who you need on your project, the human capital and their time. So you need to make sure you have all of those listed. And then, in presenting your budget, just have a little bit of a description about what each person's key responsibility is. And then same with the materials. Budgets will skew heavily towards human capital, especially in Web3. Like, materials aren't going to cost as much, but there are materials that you have to pay for. So make sure you're including all of them in your budget. So now we're going to move to Google Sheets. We're going to look at a budget template. This budget template that we put together for you is open source. It's free to use. Here's the link that you can follow. There's a Start Here tab that's got some instructions on it. That's where we'll start. So just pull it up here. All right, so here we are on the Start Here tab. We're glad you're here. You can follow the steps below to use the Web3 grant budget template. And here's a link to email me if you have any questions or if you have any feedback about it. So we'll go through these steps. I'm not going to read them all. Hope wants to comment, likes my boomer color scheme. I don't know if you noticed, it's a rainbow. It goes Roy G. Biv. I love the color schemes in the budgets. It helps me out, at least, organize tables better. So step one is make a copy of this workbook so that you can use it. So we'll do that, and then we'll actually just see the steps in action rather than just read through them. Okay, so made a copy. Now we're in copy of Web3 grant budget template. So the first part of the budget, the first thing that you should do is your personnel worksheet. So it's, listing out all the positions that you need for your project, a little bit about each person's key responsibility, how many weeks you need to hire them for, how many hours per week you estimate they'll be working on the project, how much each person's going to cost, your estimate. You should probably talk to them before you put this number in, ask them what their price is. And then actually these gray columns will all calculate automatically. The total hours is just a function of weeks times hours, number of weeks times hours per week. The subtotal cost is the total number of hours times the price per hour. This is a nice little tool which helps with the fact that we project planners, we budgeters are always underestimating how much time it's going to take. And so this budget template actually automatically adds a 30% buffer. You can increase this if you think you're really bad at planning. You can increase this to 50%, just make it 1.5. And it's just going to take the subtotal cost and multiply it, add 30% for the actual total cost. So let me show you what this looks like by way of example. Got some example tabs here too in the template, for your reference or maybe for inspiration. So here we go. Example of personnel for this project. This is a fairly big project. We got a big team. We're building a full Web3 platform. We have a project manager. We have a product lead. We need an architect to kind of lay out the schematics for how the front end, the back end, and the smart contracts are all going to interact with each other. We need a front end dev. We need a back end dev. We need a smart contracts dev. We need somebody who's kind of out of the weeds to do our quality assurance and functional testing. And then, we need to pay someone to actually help us raise money. So everyone in rows 2 through 8 is going to be head down working on building this platform. And then someone else is actually talking to funders, putting together grant proposals, helping us raise money. And so actually the fundraiser is working the longest on this project. They're working for 10 weeks on this project. They're earning $100 an hour. Everybody else on this project is maximum 5 weeks. So the manager and the product lead are on here for 5 weeks because, they have to do the planning and then also be involved in the actual build. The architect is only going to work for 1 week. We're going to meet with them. They're going to put together the architecture, and then, that's basically done. And then the devs will use that architecture to actually build the platform. And so we have a front end dev, a back end dev, and a smart contracts dev. They're going to be working together, daily stand up, working through a few sprint cycles to get this MVP built. So those 3 will be working really closely for 4 weeks, along with the PM and the product lead, estimating that everyone involved in the platform build will be working 10 hours a week. This isn't their full-time job. This is a, moonlighting thing. It's a side hustle while we're building MVP. And once it's out there, successful, we'll get to decide if we can invest more of our time, if we can quit our day jobs. But for now, it's just 10 hours a week. I talked to everyone. I know what their rates are. The architect and the smart contracts dev, they're, in the marketplace, they're the highest demand. They're asking for the most money. The product lead is also a very highly skilled position. The front end, the back end dev, the PM, the QA person, and the fundraiser are, everybody's, you can tell from these prices, everyone's in, United States, Europe, Canada, they're in more expensive places to live. So these prices are fairly high. The total number of hours is just a function of columns C and D. The subtotal cost is a function of columns E and F. We have the buffer. We have the total cost. So to build this MVP is going to be, just for the talent, the human capital, it's going to be close to $50,000. Let me see. I'm going to pause here. This is the personnel sheet. Pause here and see if there's any questions in the chat. Thanks, Victor, for adding a link to the spreadsheet. Some comments on the color scheme. Thanks, guys. And thanks. I say guys, I'm talking about both genders. That's just a function of where I grew up. So, all right. So we talked about the personnel. Now let's talk about the materials. what are the things that we have to buy to help the team build this? So we need website hosting. We're going to need database, cloud storage. We need an email account. We need some way to document what we're building, whether it's Notion or Discourse or, GitHub, Gitbook, something like that. We need a CRM to help with the fundraising, especially, and, trying to get customers, trying to get clients. And, for this project, there's a conference that we think, bringing the MVP to this conference is really going to help us with our business development. And so we want to pay for the product lead to go to DevCon. So we've budgeted that in to this grant proposal. It's not only building it, but also fundraising for it and also sharing it with the world and trying to get support and trying to get funding so that we can build the next phase of the project. So we are asking for some money to be able to travel to an important conference. So talking about assumptions earlier, our assumptions for all of these materials are here. This seems reasonable to me. The funder might say, with global travel where it is right now, $1,000 is probably not enough. You're going to need to up that or cut the travel out of your budget. So that's a good conversation to have with the funder. I'm estimating that we should get these materials. Really, it's all software, but we should get 6 months of subscription. Building the platform, the assumption is that it's only going to take a month to build the platform, but then we need the hosting and we need these tools for months after that when we're showing them to people and we're trying to get traction, we're trying to get users, we're trying to get more funding. And so we're giving ourselves a 6-month runway once we have the platform to actually share it with the world. There's no buffer here, and tax. An assumption here is that tax is included in the price, and so this is just a function of the price times the number of months, and for the travel, it's just a one-time thing, and so the materials is just summing up the total cost of these things. And yeah, there's some notes here. Same on the personnel tab. You can leave these alone if you want them to calculate automatically. If you type into the gray columns, you're going to screw up the equations. Not a huge deal. Just know that everything that's gray in both of these columns is calculating automatically. All right, so now we've talked about personnel that we need for the project and the materials that we need for the project. So let's see how it all adds up. Let's look at the summary tab. So actually, these two columns, as well as these two columns, populate automatically from your, these columns populate automatically from the personnel column. The positions, it's just pulling the text from the personnel column when you lay out the positions, and the cost is just pulling the amount from your total after that 30% buffer. It's just pulling the number in here. So when you're working on your own budget, when you get to the summary tab, columns A and B and columns D and E should already be populated. You can add a memo or add some notes because this is the sheet that you're probably going to download and send with your grant application. So just include a little bit of information about, the purpose of each person, each role, and then also each vendor or product that you need to buy. This adds up automatically. And then both of these two sums add up here in the total request. I'm in the United States. I think in US dollars, you might be different. Of course, developer DAO is a global organization. So whichever currency you're budgeting in, put it here in cell C13. And then, cool thing about Web3 is that there's like a million different currencies, and a lot of grant programs are making grants in their own native token. And so there's a row here for conversion. I'm imagining that I'm applying to the Ethereum Foundation, and so I'm applying for a grant in ETH. And so it's probably a little bit different today, but when I was putting this template together, the conversion rate, one $1 is 0.0007, etc. ETH. And so I'm trying to convert dollars to ETH. And so here's the conversion rate, and it translates to 41.7 something ETH. And so this is going to be my total request. This is an example. I recommend if you're doing this on your own, you go personnel, then materials, and then tighten things up in the example summary. And then you can go file, download Microsoft Excel, or file, download PDF. And it will just download this tab, not all of the additional worksheets and the examples and the blank templates. It'll just download the tab that you want to present to your funder, and then you attach it to your application, and and then you're done. Then you just wait for them to get back to you about your application. So here's the blank personnel worksheet. Here's the blank materials worksheet, and it all adds up to the budget summary. And if you forget the steps, of course, this workshop's being recorded, and then also they're laid out here step by step. So that's really it. Gonna go back to the presentation, the slides, and we're gonna go to Q&A. So I see a few questions in the chat. A few comments as well. Victor, add the date for the conversion rate. Yes, good call. I should do that for sure. Because these cryptocurrencies are always changing. And Rocio, your question, the costs are monthly or for the whole project? Those are assumptions that you make when you're putting the budget together. So when I'm budgeting, I state how many months I'm going to be paying for each software. In this example, it was 6 months. And for personnel, I'm estimating or assuming how many weeks I'll need to be hiring someone and how many hours per week. And so those are some of the columns that are in the spreadsheet. But it's up to you. If you don't want to share that much information with the funder, some people like to take more of an outcomes approach in budgeting, where they say, like, we're going to hire a smart contracts dev, and we're going to pay them $5,000, and they're going to write all the smart contracts, and it's going to be $5,000, and that's it. As you guys could tell from this workshop, I take more of a, how many hours, how much do we pay them per hour to get to the final number. But some people like to work backwards from, here's how much we're going to pay you, this is the job, get it done, without really considering as much necessarily how much time it would take. So there's different approaches. This is just the approach that I like to take. Question from Joel is website. I'm not sure what you mean, Joel. If you could add a little context to that question. Cypher, how much should we comment for extra one-way costs? How much should we comment for extra one-way costs? Is weeks or quarters? I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that, Cypher. If you could add a little context to that question as well. But like I said, we got some questions throughout the week, so I'm going to turn to these, and then I'll come back to the chat. So one question is how to ask for the correct amount. And then the next question is very similar. Should you ask for the maximum available? I I've worked on both sides of grant making. I've raised a lot of money through grants, mostly, in the nonprofit sector in the United States, raising money from foundations, raising money from high net worth donors. And then I've also been on the grant making side. So, working for a private foundation or working for a government agency, making grants. And really, like, it's okay to ask for the maximum amount. Grant makers, their job is to get rid of all their money. They have a budget, and their board or their bosses or whomever is whoever they're accountable to, if they don't disperse all the money each quarter or each year, like, they're not doing a good job. So it's okay to ask for the maximum available. Of course, you need to know what that is. And so that's where it goes back. Like, so much of grants fundraising is building relationships. Victor and I have been doing a lot of that on behalf of Developer DAO, and we're getting information about how much different grant programs are willing to make right now through their grants. So if a funder says the maximum size grant we're making right now is $10,000, you can ask for $10,000. You can ask for 9,500, 9,700. Like, I don't think that you gain any favor by asking for 7,000. Like, if anything, it might invite scrutiny around, like, is this person cutting corners? Have they really thought of everything? So if they tell you that they're making up to $25,000 grants, find a way to ask for $25,000. It's perfectly fine. They need to get rid of the money. If they believe in your project, they're not going to like you any less for asking for the maximum amount that they're offering. How do you calculate compensation for devs? I showed you how I do it. It's an estimate of how many hours do I need from this dev, and then talking to them about what their hourly rate is, and then adding 30% on top of that, because we're all bad at estimating our time and how long it will take to complete projects. So that's how I do it. Like I said, I've worked with people who take more of a, here's how much money I'm offering you, Mr. or Miss Dev. Will you take it or will you leave it? I don't need to know how many hours it's going to take you to complete this. Can you do the job? Are you willing to do it for this much money? All right, cool. How to estimate hours. Hardest thing about budgeting is estimating hours. This is more of an art than a science. I try to make up for my shortcomings in being able to anticipate how long things will take by adding that 30% buffer. You might want to add a 50% buffer on top of, what the dev tells you it will take them 30 hours. I add 30% on top of that. You might want to add 50% on top of that. Bottom line is, don't take devs at their word on how many hours it's going to take them. It always takes longer than they think it will, than you think it will. Should you break it down per person or per feature? So like in the example that I gave of, like, we're building a Web3 platform. There's a front end, there's a back end, and there's smart contracts. I didn't go into all the features of the product. I take the approach of, in budgeting, breaking it down per person. I'm going to need this person for 4 weeks, 10 hours a week. This is how much they cost. Here's how we get to the number that we need for them. You can also break it down per feature. I'd say if you go the per feature route, that's more of an outcomes based versus like a time and materials based. And so I think it's a bit less scientific to do outcomes based budgeting. You are coming up with a number. The assumptions are going to be built in either way. Like, no matter what, there's no way getting around. You have to pay people for their time. You have to pay for software on a monthly basis. So there's assumptions, even if the budget that you're presenting is per feature, you're baking in a lot of assumptions there. So I prefer to have those assumptions laid out in the table so everybody can see them. That's why I break it down like per person, per vendor. But yeah, per feature, I mean, you can take that approach as well. It's just not the approach I prefer. Going back to the chat. Cypher, for the summary comments, how do we break down the extra use for each position in personnel if we run long? That's a tough question to answer because like when you're presenting a budget, it's like you're trying to predict the future and how long it's going to take. So I don't know how you can show that a project has run long before it starts. I guess that's what the buffer is for. Adding a buffer to your personnel costs gives you some cushion. Like I said, this is going to take 4 weeks to build. But then I also added 30% on top of that. So really, I'm budgeting for an extra like week and a half. I'm telling the funder it's going to take 4 weeks, but I'm budgeting for 5.5 weeks. That's like the function of the buffer column in this budget template. But yeah, it kind of goes back to it's really important to have a relationship with your funders and kind of treat them as partners. Like your success is their success. They're trying to give money to projects that will do something to contribute value to their mission or to their ecosystem or to their product, and they want you to be successful. So if you're 3 weeks into a 4-week project and you realize it's not going to get done in 4 weeks, hopefully you already have a relationship with the funder, or at least you've spoken with them, you know them, and you feel comfortable being honest with them, like, hey, this is running over. We ran into these challenges. Somebody got sick, or there's a bug, or this tool that we wanted to use, we realized there was some dependency on it that's making things more challenging. Hopefully you can go to them and have a conversation with them and work it out and get more funding to finish the job is I think the best advice I can give. What are the tax implications for receiving grants when the project is not incorporated yet? The tax question. So I'm going to give you a perspective from the United States. I know things about taxes from being an entrepreneur in the United States. I don't know anything about other countries, and I'm not an accountant. I'm not a tax attorney. None of this is tax advice. I'm just speaking from my own experience. So my experience, in the United States, you get taxed on profits. If you're a business, you're taxed on profits. If you're getting a grant to build something and you're presenting a budget for all of your costs and you're trying to get money to cover all of your costs, you don't have a profit in that budget. Like you're planning to spend, like if you think of a grant as revenue, you're planning to spend all of it. So there's not going to be any money left to be taxed on. So that's why in this budget template that I presented and that we're sharing with you, there's not a calculation for tax because we're assuming that all of the revenue that comes in from the grant is going to go back out to pay other people and to pay for your materials expenses. So it doesn't exactly answer your question. I know you're asking about when a project's not incorporated yet. So, I mean, I would say if you're not incorporated, if you don't have a legal entity, you might have trouble getting a grant. Most funders are going to want to enter into a contract with you. And if you don't have a legal entity, then you don't have a jurisdiction to make that contract legal. It's just a piece of paper or a digital copy of something that can't be enforced anywhere because you're not registered in any jurisdiction. So they might be less likely to fund you if you don't have a legal entity. Um, so, that's something to consider. If you are able to get a grant and you're not incorporated, and all the money that comes in goes back out to pay for the things that you need, then you don't have to worry about taxes. If you get $50,000 and you end up only spending $45,000, that $5,000 that's left, you will be taxed on. At least in the United States, they'll look at that as business income. So not, revenue minus expenses. That's your income, that's your profit. They're going to want to tax you on that. If you're unincorporated, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how you would pay taxes on that if you're unincorporated. And like I said, not an accountant, not an attorney, so I don't want to give you advice on that. I don't know what the answer is. Can you ask for grant to get you halfway of MVP to see if the protocol will work, like a pre-MVP, or do you need the complete MVP with the grant? This is it's a really good question, because especially right now in this bear market, so many funders, so many Web3 funders, like their grant program is based on how much money they have in their treasury, which is often a function of the value of their native token. Their native token is down 80% this year. They probably have 80% less funding to disperse. And so that's all to say that they're not making as big a grants as they were a year ago. And if you need $50,000, like in this example I shared today, I need like $52,000 to build my MVP. There's not a lot of funders who are making $53,000 grants in Web3 right now. The most I might be able to get from a grant might be $20,000. Let's just say, for sake of example. And if that's the case, then if they're only going to make a $20,000 grant, I can't ask for $53,000. I'm not going to get it. And if I present this budget asking for $20,000, then they're going to say, well, you can't build this with $20,000. So why would we give you money to build part of something? Like it's not going to be successful if it's only half. So what you would need to do is kind of break your MVP into stages and say, this is what we can do with $20,000. With $20,000, we can pay for a product lead and a fundraiser and an architect to, lay out what this platform is going to be. But with $20,000, we don't have enough money to actually pay the dev team to build it. So this grant will help us raise more money because you're going to pay us to hire a fundraiser. It's going to help us get the architecture so that we cross that next milestone. And in the next grant proposal, we're not just presenting ideas, we're actually presenting the architectural map that all of the software engineers, the front end, the back end, and the Web3, which they're going to use to actually build the platform. So your $20,000 grant is going to get us to this important milestone and help us raise the next amount of funding that we need to actually build the MVP. That's like, just one way that you could approach it. But if a grant program is only going to get you halfway to your MVP, don't submit a grant application saying this will help us build half of our MVP, because it's like building half of a house. Like that's useless, like you need all of the functions and features of a house if you're going to live in it. Can't live in a house that's only half built. It's going to be the same with Web3 projects. So you need to find a way to say, this grant will help us build the foundation of the house and, install the plumbing. And then we're going to get a grant to build the roof and the electrical or whatever. All right. I don't see any I don't see any other questions. So we'll just see if anybody wants to ask any last minute questions before we wrap up. Last chance. Well, it's not your last chance to ask questions. You can find us in Developer DAO server in the fundraising general section of the server. You can also join us for fundraising office hours, 2 p.m. UTC, 9 a.m. Eastern time, every Monday and Friday in Voice Chat 1. Would love to see you there this Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern time, or asynchronously in the Developer DAO server. Well, thanks so much for joining today. Hopefully this was useful. Welcome any feedback, any additional questions that anybody has. We'll be sharing this presentation, sharing the budget template, and also adding these new resources to the fundraising guide, that Notion wiki that Victor is adding new resources to all the time. Got a question. Can we help with fundraising? Yes, we can to an extent. We can't do your fundraising for you, but we can help. We can give you feedback on grant proposals. We can give you feedback on your budget. We can help you strategize about where you should be looking for grant funding. We can talk to you about your fundraising. But we work for the entire DAO, which means we're helping a lot of founders and a lot of projects, at the same time every week. A lot of projects at the same time, and we're helping people every week. And so we don't have time to write a grant proposal for you, to do your fundraising for you. We're taking more of trying to teach people how to fundraise and try to help people improve their fundraising. But if you're a founder and you have a project, you have to take the lead on the fundraising. We're here to support you and help guide you and help lead you to successful fundraising. All right. Thank you all. Talk to you soon. Have a good rest of your day.